All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Friday afternoon. And thanks for spending time with me. You know, of all the places that you could be right now on the planet, that you'd be watching this. It's an honor. So, title today is Aligning with the Time to Come. And so, what the heck does that mean? And what is the time to come? And so, I want to talk about that a little bit. So, in the more traditional societies, you know, those are the ones that hold the wisdom traditions. And that's what we do here at the sanctuary. We hold a couple of wisdom traditions. That's the kind of the backbone of our program. And the reason why is because these traditions are based on wisdom, nature, which is consistent. It doesn't matter what political parties in office or not in office. It doesn't matter what religions are around or not around. You know, we don't have to keep changing the doctrine because it's based on observations of nature. And when I can understand nature, it helps me to understand my inner nature. And anybody that's struggling, ultimately, that's where we're going to find our answers. So here we are a mental health facility and an addiction treatment center, and we are helping people who are struggling through very traumatic events in their lives, very dysfunctional coping strategies that they have, and giving them tools. Hey, that's all helpful, but we have to help them tap into this inherent wisdom that they have. And so part of these wisdom traditions talks about cycles of time, just like we're familiar with cycles of time through our seasons as we go around the sun. We have spring, summer, winter, fall. And we know that the environment is different depending on what season that we're in. Well, as we go to larger kind of galactic time frames, we go through seasons. There are things that happen, and these ancient cultures knew about that. So, as evidenced by some of the prophecies, the Mayan calendar is something that many are familiar with. This thing goes for 5,225 years. You know, the thing is accurate to the nanosecond. There's no adjusting this calendar. There's no leap year. There's no setting the clocks backwards and forwards. It's predicts movements of planets and Venus to the T. And we could only understand this when our computers got sophisticated enough to process all this. But somehow these people knew, whether they got it given to them or through observations of vast amounts of time, things like precession of the equinox, which is a representation of the Earth's wobble. It takes 26,000 years or 5 Mayan calendar cycles to do that. And the Mayans understood that time has a quality, that there are things that happen, again, that they are cyclical. We're in cyclical time, which is different than us in the Western world, which we have linear time that, you know, flies like a bullet. It starts here and ends over there. And that's not what the ancients were talking about. We can look at the Hopi prophecy, which talks about now as the end times. The Inca prophecy, which I'm most familiar with, talks about now, this particular time that we're in. They call it the Pachacuti, or the changing over. And we look at the rapture, the same thing. Hey, at some point in time, people will be called to God. The Hopi prophecy talks about coming to this kind of choice point that we're in, and where we can go left kind of down into the abyss, or we can go right up into the ascension point. And so these ancient cultures, you know, we somehow discount their technology, but these guys built cities in the clouds and pyramids that we cannot duplicate today. If you look at the stones at Baalbek, you know, we couldn't even move one of those an inch right now with all our technology, let alone quarry it, dress it, move it, and take it up that giant hill right there. So these people understood some things, and maybe we can learn from them. So we talk about this new time, this new Pachacuti that we're in, or the end of time. And that's what's happening in our planet right now. So if you look at, a lot of people are talking about, oh, this is the new normal, right? Which is going to be masks and virus, immune system inoculations, what do you call those, vaccines. That's the new, better get used to it. Better get used to this thing where sickness is going to be around. Better get used to that. So people are already talking about this thing called the new normal. And I'm just wondering if that's the new normal that we want to create. So something that came to me, one of the things, I was watching some videos about something called cymatics, which is a body of science created by I think he was a Swiss physicist named Hans Jenny. And what he did was he would vibrate sand or liquids on a medium, and the higher the vibration, the more complex the shapes would take of these piles of sand or media. So you'd start with a pile of sand and they put it on a flat sheet of metal and they begin to oscillate. And as they turn it up, as it goes up in higher frequency, the sand begins to move and take shapes. And it takes all these sacred geometry shapes. So the shapes get more complex as the vibration gets higher. And that's just the nature. That's kind of the law of physics. So these higher vibratory frequencies just hold more structure. And we say, well, what the heck does that have to do with me? Well, here's what it has to do with me. Right now, the Earth is going through a phase change. There's something called the Schumann resonance, which is kind of the Earth's vibration. It's speeding up. What's interesting about that, that's the same as cymatics. As it speeds up, as its vibration gets higher, then the structures on the Earth need to match that vibration or they will not survive. The vibration, it's like a field, wants to hold it in a certain way, and the more we try not to do that, the more we're just expending effort, and we're never going to stop it from happening. Whether that happens because the Earth is going through a photon belt or it's crossing the galactic plane and there's a more refined energy, whatever seems to be going on has happened before. So how did the people deal with it before? What is the wisdom in our own DNA, right? And when we talk about the end times, well, we're experiencing the end times right now because our whole culture is decaying. Of course, we want to keep that in the shadow. But I don't know anybody watching this video or any otherwise that has total trust in the government, right? That you say, hey, I send in my taxes and I know these guys are diligent in taking care of it. They're going to spend it wisely. They're not going to take care of their own personal self-interest. Of course we don't say that because it's not true. Nobody trusts the government because it's all riddled with corruption and self-interest. And what does that look like? Well, even the people that are these lobbyists, right? So lobbyists go and talk to somebody and promise them some money. Well, now that person has to do something for that money, and elected officials have to raise money for campaigns. So this is not like, some sinister conspiracy thing. It's the system. Unfortunately, that system means that a lot of people that are voting are not going to get well represented or fairly represented. Our money system, that now is basically destroyed, but it needed to be destroyed because it's all based on air. So that system has come to its end. Medicine is coming to its end. Antibiotics are not as effective because viruses and these critters, these sicknesses get stronger every time we have a new antibiotic. This thing says, okay, well, I'll just adapt and change and then let's create a new antibiotic. So that system is not working. Many, many systems are not working. So we can get invested in changing those, or we can start to look at the new time and what we want to create. And that's what we are called to do by the ancients. That's what all of these prophecies are pointing to, this kind of choice point in time. If the vibration of the planet is changing and we don't change with it, we are going to perish. And we're seeing that right now. So we can either be fixated on arguing about masks or no masks and arguing about who should stay in or go out or who gets their $1,200 or what Donald Trump is doing or not doing or Q or the Galactic Federation or somebody that's going to come save us, which is probably not going to happen. We can be invested into fixing it. You know, people say go back to when things go back to normal. We're creating the new normal. So it's up to us to figure out what do we want to create. Sort of this choice point. I can either ascend or I can combust. I can't stay the same because nothing in nature remains static. So I've been really focused on what do we want to create. And the interesting thing is, you know, the sanctuary, we've been here 16 years, you know, we're a one-of-a-kind treatment center, right? People talk about it, but we've been doing stuff that is so unique for the whole time. We've been ahead of our time, and we're aligned with this new time because, again, we're based on wisdom traditions. We're not based on old therapeutic models that are becoming obsolete. So we're totally ready for this moment. And, you know, we're growing our own food here. We are helping people to have these awakenings. We are helping people to get out of their limbic brains and up into their prefrontal cortex, which is another great analogy for this phase change that we're in. So if we talk about the limbic brain, that's our survival brain. That is, that's what keeps us alive. Hey, there's a speeding car coming at me. I get out of the way without thinking about it. This brain is super handy to have because if we don't survive, nothing else is possible. When I'm in my limbic brain, I do not have access to my higher brain functions. I just don't. It's either or. And we know this because we've all had arguments with somebody we love, and I'll say like some horrible, nasty thing to them during this argument because I'm in my limbic brain. That's survival. This person is attacking me. I know they're not going to kill me, but if my heart is beating like this and I'm not exercising, I'm in fight or flight. So therefore, I don't have access to the fact, oh my God, my loved one, they care about me. They're just having a bad day. They're worried about all kinds of stuff. They're doing this, they're doing that. So no wonder why, let's just give them a little slack. When I get activated in the limbic brain, all that stuff disappears. So I don't have access to all that. So I say some nasty thing. And then when I come down, I go, oh my God, did I say that to my mother or my wife or my brother? And so this limbic, being trapped in the limbic brain is going to keep us stuck in survival mode instead of up here in our prefrontal cortex, which is called the God brain. So a phenomenon that happens when we are born is we have all of these neural networks that start coming online and the brain is developing and there's zillions of neural networks happening. And then once the divine intelligence of the brain says, hey, wait a second, there's so much going on here. We can make this more efficient by cutting away some of these neural networks that are not useful and focusing on the ones that are useful. So that process is called synaptic pruning. It happens to everybody. And we cut away all these creative sites because we don't need them. We perceive we don't need them. Hey, I got to go to work, go to school, all that kind of stuff. So this God brain is where the meditators try to get to. It's where the answers to our issues lie. It's where it's our connection to the cosmos. It's where the new ideas are going to come for the new world that we're creating. That's all up in here. And the problem is that the more time I spend in my limbic brain, because of neuroplasticity, the more I do something, the more I tend to do something. The more I'm angry, the more I tend to be angry, if you've noticed that, right? So I've got to stop and get out of here so I can get up here. Otherwise, I will disavow everything that I know. And even though I don't trust politicians, I'll say, yeah, give me the vaccine, give me the solution, because I'm desperate, right? I'm gonna die. I don't perceive it that way, but That's what's going on in my unconscious mind. So we have to start to reestablish these connections up to the prefrontal cortex. That's the only way we're going to create the world that we are entitled to, that we've all been dreaming of, that we want our children's children to inherit. So how do we get there? Well, everybody, I think it was Buckminster Fuller said, hey, don't focus on attacking and bringing down the old system. Focus on the system that you want to create. And that's what we need to do. As tempting as it is to go on Facebook, as tempting as it is to find out what the latest COVID stats are, which are all inaccurate and corrupted anyway, for lots of reasons. And that's pretty well known. That's not a controversial comment. So it happens to be the solstice this weekend. It happens to be the eclipse this weekend. And it happens to be the new moon this weekend. So this is a ripe time. Our weekend at the sanctuary is all laden with ceremony. We're going to be in ceremony the whole weekend, starting tonight and ending on Sunday night, of various kinds. So I need to get into this prefrontal cortex. And it's interesting because if we look at these cultures that are been around for thousands and thousands of years, we're using plant medicines, ayahuasca and iboga and peyote and other things to kind of break free of my default mode network. What's happening now, which is really cool, in psychiatry, they're using psychedelics therapeutically now. And we've actually been doing some ketamine here at the sanctuary for some of the clients. And what it does is it just gives them a rest from this default mode network, which is this set of circuits, which is essentially my identity. All my fears, all my inhibitions, all my beliefs, all the way that I look at the world, my depression, my anxiety is all wrapped up in this little spot. And if I don't get out of this spot, I'm never going to come up with a solution. So you take ketamine and that brings you out of that to have this like reset. And I'm not encouraging people to go out and do ketamine. There are therapists that can help guide this experience for you. So our clients are all doing it in a guided way. And then they come back and they get some very intense work that happens after that so they can process that and make the best of this experience. So, but we don't have to have ketamine to do that. We can do that in ceremony. Ceremony changes the limbic brain. So we can create ceremony any which way we want to. We've gotten disconnected from ceremony somewhat in our Western world. Rites of passage, those were ceremonies, and people would be inherently different after the rite of passage. Now, even though we've lost track of them, we still understand their value because we have important things that happen in ceremony: graduation ceremony, wedding ceremony, even happy birthday to you, that's a little ceremony. And these are little rituals. Why do we do them? Because they affect the limbic brain. That's how we change it. I can't talk my way out of the limbic brain. It's impossible. So we can have, what kind of ceremonies are we going to be doing this weekend? I'll just give you a couple of ideas. We're going to be doing something, we're going to create a medicine bundle as an offering to the earth. All the people that are here are going to do that. You can do that and go around the house and just pick some of your finest things, your finest herbs from your garden, maybe some incense that you have, things that are of value to you. Put them in a bundle as part of a ceremony and place them carefully, like a piece of art that you were going to give your mother, when you were in first grade, those little hand things that we put in the clay, it's kind of like that. So you're really wanting to make your mom a nice gift. And when we make offerings to the earth appreciates that. And it helps us to get in resonance with the earth. So much of what's going on in our troubled society right now is because we've become disconnected from the very thing that's sustaining our lives, which is earth and our connection to nature. We know that going out in nature is therapeutically valuable. There's a million studies around it. Nobody would dispute that, right? So that means there's something healing in nature. That connection is healthy. It's healing. It helps me. Get out in nature. Take a hike. That can be either being on my cell phone or having my earbuds in and exercising, or that can be take all that stuff off. Listen. Feel the wind. Feel the sun. Look at the surroundings. Look for something on a trail that you've been on 100 times that you've never seen before. And if you're looking for it, you'll find it. Deepen your connection to nature. Create an altar. It's particularly out on the land. Altar is very healing. An altar is just like a place where you could put some sacred things. It's a sacred little spot. So it brings the sacredness back into our routine. You can get up and greet the sun, and you can set intention. You know, that's just something I do every day. I wake up, I spend a little time outside, I'll set an intention for the day. And if I spend time setting an intention, the chances of that happening are markedly better than if I just walk through the day and hope for the best. So we need to get back to the ceremonial, and the ceremonial is the sacred, and the sacred is the pathway to the soul. And I can tell you, that's the only place that we are going to find our answers. That's really the only place as clients come to the sanctuary, and these are people that are with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, with high anxiety of many different varieties, horrible abuse that they need to heal, addictions that are severe, let's put it that way. And those are the kind of people we attract. And how do we help them? Well, we help them to recover their soul. That's what I mean by be recovered. And at the sanctuary, we talk about being recovered, not be in recovery for the rest of my life, to be in a recovered state, which means I've recaptured my essence. I've recaptured who I am. I've recaptured my connection to my own wisdom that's inherent in my own DNA. And we are the product of hundreds and hundreds of millions of years of evolution on this planet. That's in ourselves. All we have to do is pay attention to it and look for the answers within, and let those answers within guide us on the new path rather than try to fix the old. So it's sort of like out with the old, in with the new. This has been prophesized by people that build pyramids and structures that we don't understand. So obviously they're advanced, they're intelligent. If you look at the precession of the equinox that we just figured out, I think in the late 1800s, these guys have known about it for thousands and thousands of years, and this has an effect on us for sure. If these people are pointing to all of that and pointing to this time of this great choice, let's listen to them, because they're in your DNA. So let's stop looking to another expert to try to fix us and try to give us some statistic that's going to make us feel better about COVID or about your addiction or about some other diagnosis you have. And let's focus on our inner technology to guide us to create the new way, because that's what we're all here to do. So hopefully this is helpful, and just so much love and respect. Happy blessings on the solstice. Whatever ceremonies that you do, you'll be connected to our ceremonies here, and just sending you all the love. Till next time.